The day began like any other, with the gentle hum of alarm clocks and the smell of coffee drifting through open windows. People shuffled into their kitchens, half awake, scrolling through their phones, unaware that the world outside was about to shift beneath their feet. But as the sun rose higher, a subtle tension crept into the air. The streets, usually bustling with commuters and school buses, felt strangely subdued. There was a quiet panic brewing, invisible but unmistakable, as if everyone sensed something was off, but couldn't quite name it yet. By lunchtime, the news headline, "Global oil prices surge amidst Gulf tensions," became reality. Phones buzzed with alerts, televisions blared urgent updates, and the world's attention snapped to a crisis unfolding thousands of miles away. Gas station signs changed overnight, prices leaping into the unimaginable. Numbers that had seemed high just yesterday now looked almost quaint as they were replaced by record-breaking figures, climbing higher with every passing hour. Cars lined up for blocks, drivers anxious and frustrated. The lines snaked around corners and down side streets, horns blaring as tempers flared. Some people abandoned their cars, desperate to find another station before the pumps ran dry. Arguments broke out at the pumps as patience wore thin. Strangers shouted over whose turn it was, while others pleaded for just a few more gallons to get home or to work. The sense of community that once defined these neighborhoods was replaced by suspicion and desperation. Social media exploded with photos of skyrocketing prices and dark humor. "My new car," read a caption under a bicycle. Memes and viral videos tried to make light of the chaos, but beneath the jokes was a growing sense of dread. The shock united millions in a shared sense of vulnerability. In parks, offices, and living rooms, people gathered around screens, watching the crisis unfold in real time, realizing that no one was immune to its effects. For struggling families, the news was devastating. Every dollar spent at the pump meant less for groceries, rent, or medicine. Parents whispered anxiously over kitchen tables, trying to shield their children from the fear in their voices. A mother of two, commuting 40 miles to her nursing job, now faced hundreds more in monthly fuel costs, money she didn't have. She stared at her gas gauge, calculating how many shifts she'd need to pick up just to break even, wondering if she could keep her job at all. Across the country, people stared at bills, wondering what to cut to afford this new expense. Vacations were canceled, dinners out became a luxury, and even the smallest indulgences were suddenly out of reach. Headlines grew more alarming. Gas hits record high. Oil shock. U.S. imposes Iran blockade. The crisis was no longer just a distant headline. It was a daily reality, shaping every decision and conversation. The link between distant conflict and pain at the pump was suddenly clear. What happened in the Gulf was no longer abstract. It was personal, immediate, and inescapable. The world felt smaller, more fragile. The safety of routine had vanished, replaced by a collective anxiety that settled over neighborhoods like a heavy fog. A decision made thousands of miles away had reached into the pockets of ordinary people. Suddenly, every trip, every purchase, every plan for the future had to be reconsidered. Budgets evaporated, futures filled with uncertainty. People wondered how long they could hold on, and what sacrifices would be required next. The question on everyone's mind: how did we get here, and how much worse will it get? Conversations turned to blame, to politics, to survival, as the nation searched for answers. This was no longer just a news story, it was a national crisis. The sense of unity was tinged with fear, as people looked to leaders for solutions and found only more questions. The ripple effects were only beginning. Grocery store shelves emptied as delivery trucks sat idle, and small businesses closed early, unable to afford the cost of staying open. The day ended with a sense that life had changed, and not for the better. As darkness fell, the uncertainty lingered, leaving everyone to wonder what tomorrow might bring. To truly understand the recent spike in oil prices, we need to focus our attention on the Persian Gulf, a narrow strategic waterway bordered by oil-rich giants like Saudi Arabia and Iran. This region is not just a point on the map, it's the beating heart of the world's energy supply, a place where geography and geopolitics collide. Every single day, massive supertankers, some of the largest ships ever built, carry millions of barrels of crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage, just 21 miles wide at its tightest point, is the most critical choke point for global energy. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply, about 20%, flows through this slender channel every day. That's more than any other route on the planet, making it a true artery of the global economy. If this vital route is ever disrupted, the consequences are immediate and severe. Highways empty, factories slow to a crawl, ports fall silent, and oil tankers sit idle, waiting for the crisis to pass. The price of oil is hypersensitive to any threat in this region. Political tensions, military exercises, or even rumors of sabotage can send prices soaring within hours, triggering panic on trading floors and uncertainty in markets worldwide. Our interconnected global economy depends on this oil always flowing freely. From the cars we drive to the planes that connect continents, from factories to homes, this energy lifeline powers modern life as we know it. But now, that delicate balance has been shattered. The world faces the real possibility of shortages, blackouts, and economic slowdown, as the flow of oil is threatened like never before. The movement of oil is about far more than economics. It's a source of geopolitical power and leverage. Decisions made here ripple across continents, affecting billions of lives. The U.S. blockade of Iran has effectively turned off a major path, escalating tensions and transforming the entire region into a high-stakes risk zone. Every ship, every port, every decision is now under intense scrutiny. Around the world, traders, governments, and ordinary families are holding their breath as this vital lifeline is squeezed tighter and tighter, unsure of what tomorrow will bring. The consequences are immediate, far-reaching, and global, reminding us all just how fragile our modern world can be when its lifeblood is at risk. A naval blockade uses warships to prevent ships from entering or leaving a country's ports, a ring of steel at sea. The U.S. Navy has deployed aircraft carriers and destroyers near the Strait of Hormuz to intercept oil tankers leaving Iran. Washington's goal: cut off Iran's oil revenue and force political change. But a blockade is legally an act of war, and Iran calls it piracy, vowing to resist. The risk of escalation is high. A single miscalculation could spark conflict. The impact on oil markets was immediate. Insurance costs for tankers soared, and the region became a conflict zone. Other Gulf nations are now wary of sending their own tankers through these waters. The blockade hasn't just stopped Iranian oil, it's chilled the entire region's output. A global supply shock is underway. The world's energy artery is under siege. The stakes could not be higher. To better understand the unfolding crisis, we sat down with retired General Mark Kimmett, a seasoned military analyst with decades of experience in both combat and strategy. His perspective sheds light on the complex dynamics at play in the Persian Gulf, where every decision carries enormous weight. General Kimmett explains that the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet is not just a show of force, it's a highly coordinated armada, equipped with advanced carrier groups, destroyers, and support vessels. Their mission is to enforce the blockade with precision, projecting power across the region and deterring any attempts to break through. But Iran, he warns, is unlikely to engage in a conventional naval battle. Instead, they'll rely on asymmetric tactics, deploying swarms of fast attack boats, laying hidden sea mines, and launching missiles from concealed positions along the coast. These methods are designed to exploit vulnerabilities, disrupt shipping, and keep the U.S. constantly on edge. The goal for Iran is clear: make the blockade as costly and perilous as possible, raising the stakes until the U.S. questions whether the operation is worth the risk. Every encounter at sea becomes a test of nerves and resolve. In this environment, the greatest danger is escalation. A single miscalculation, a nervous officer interpreting a radar blip as a threat, or a misunderstood maneuver, could trigger a chain reaction. The pressure on commanders is immense, as every second counts and every choice could have global consequences. If a U.S. ship fires on an Iranian vessel, or if Iran retaliates, the situation could spiral out of control within minutes. The margin for error is razor thin, and the consequences could be catastrophic for both sides. Blockades are powerful but blunt instruments. They don't just target governments, they impact entire populations, disrupting trade, crippling economies, and causing hardship for millions. The hope is to force a change in policy, but the collateral damage is often severe. History, however, offers a sobering lesson. Sieges and blockades can sometimes backfire, strengthening a regime's grip on power as citizens rally around their leaders in defiance. Instead of weakening resolve, external pressure can unite a nation against a common enemy. Now, the blockade has set a countdown in motion. The world waits to see if Iran will capitulate, if the U.S. will escalate militarily, or if both sides will find a path to diplomacy. Each option carries its own risks and uncertainties. For decision-makers, none of these choices are easy. The stakes are enormous, and the margin for error is vanishingly small. Every move is scrutinized, every outcome uncertain. The military standoff is like a high-wire act, with both sides balancing over a chasm of potential conflict. Sailors and officers remain vigilant through sleepless nights, knowing that the fate of nations could rest on their actions. One mistake, one misread signal or hasty decision could change the world in an instant. The clock is ticking, and the tension is palpable. Around the globe, people watch and wait, hoping for restraint and wisdom from their leaders. The risks are immense, the consequences far-reaching, and the outcome remains uncertain as the world holds its breath. The cost of a naval blockade is staggering: billions to deploy, millions per day to operate. Just a few months' expense could fund scholarships, rebuild schools, or advance medical research. Every dollar spent on war is a dollar not spent at home, on bridges, clean energy, or healthcare. These are real trade-offs, not just numbers. As costs mount, the nation must ask, is this burden justified? The needs at home are immense. The price of conflict is measured in lost opportunities. High gas prices are just the first ripple. Every product and service has energy costs built in. Food is grown, harvested, and shipped using fuel. Now those costs have doubled. The logistics industry, ships, trucks, delivery vans, runs on petroleum. As fuel prices soar, transportation costs are passed to consumers. Manufacturing is hit too. Plastics, chemicals, and fertilizers all rely on oil. Factories face higher bills, raising prices on everything from toys to medical supplies. Inflation spreads through the supply chain, eroding purchasing power. Commutes, groceries, and services all cost more. Those with the tightest budgets are hit hardest. The oil shock is a tax on everyone. Oil prices hit food costs directly. Modern farming is energy-intensive, and fertilizer production relies on natural gas. As energy costs double, so do food prices, especially for staples. Farmers must pass costs to consumers or risk going under. Low-income families feel the squeeze most. Rising energy costs also push up heating bills and rents. Landlords pass higher utility costs to tenants. Economic instability threatens housing security for many. The crisis reaches every kitchen and home. 3 paths lie ahead: escalation, diplomacy, or stalemate. Escalation means war. One attack could trigger a cycle of retaliation and catastrophe. Diplomacy would require back-channel talks and compromise, easing the blockade for nuclear concessions. But mistrust runs deep. The likely short-term outcome is stalemate. The blockade stays, both sides avoid direct conflict, and the world adjusts to high prices and uncertainty. Economic pain spreads, and the risk of accidental escalation remains. Each path carries immense consequences. The choice will be made by leaders in Washington, Tehran, and beyond. The world hopes for wisdom